Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax. Let's chat about what's happening up in the stars this morning. And also today, we're going to take up some gene keys and some human design, as actually that's equally of importance today in this particular age that we're living in, to watch what's happening, the shifts and the changes that are going on in our design. Human design and gene keys, to me, are the thing that allows us to get to what is it that's really going on with us? What is it that we're really moving through? And in a way, to me, it's the charting of our evolution and putting words, different words perhaps, to some of the transits that are happening in the sky with the planets. You know, human design astrology also uses the planets and the points, for example, the nodes, North Node and the South Node, which are making a big change today. And we like to see what's happening energetically throughout the different centers that are being affected by changes, and also the evolutionary impulse of the energies that are running through us. And I think in some ways, human design and the gene keys give us better access to that, while the planets in astrology give us a great idea about what are the pulses that are running. So today we're going to take a look at both what's going on from the day in terms of human design and gene keys, but also through astrology. So let's say a quick good morning to everybody before I dive in. Hello, Kristen and Mimi. Good morning. And Stevens, good morning. By the way, I'm totally thrilled. Last night, I don't know how I survived a game such as what I watched, but my Seahawks are winning again. They won the San Francisco 49ers, who had up until this point an 8-0 record. They hadn't lost a game, but in all fairness, they hadn't really met a team of the caliber of the Seahawks yet. And both the Seahawks and the 49ers have some pretty difficult teams to meet from here on, but it was a thrilling game. And sometimes I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, just sure we were going to lose. And then the other times I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, just sure we were going to win. And it was one of those games, flop back and forth, and that makes it thrilling. It means that you were just sort of sitting on the edge of your seat. You couldn't help but do that. So it was a really good game. Enjoyed every minute of it. So let's dig in and see what some of the energies are that we are dealing with today. Today, the moon is in Taurus. We woke up having experienced the full moon at 5:35 my time, 8:35 for you all on the East Coast. We talked about the full moon yesterday in across the signs of Taurus and Scorpio, where we are both having to be grounded and practical in our approaches, living very close to the land, living very close to the earth. While on the other end of things, Scorpio is very deeply emotional, passionate, intense, and is often taken into crisis and that life and death sort of situation. So we were learning how to both be practical, but also how to deal with some of those more crisis-oriented energies and bring something into completion or something being revealed to us. And actually, what's funny about that, and I'm going to write a quick note to myself, because as I was sitting here this morning, preparing for the morning, I was just looking back over the full moon. And it's always interesting when a moon happens like that, when it's full or new and you're asleep, or you're, in my case, I was just on the edge of waking up. For some of you, it would have already happened because you're up maybe, before 8 something when it happened in your part of the world. But I was looking for that revelation, or I was looking for that, what happened, what came to me. And at first blush, nothing had really popped that made me go, oh yeah, that's my thing. But as I was looking through, I was searching for information, to round out my own knowledge. I often do searches for topics. And this morning I was looking for the topic of the nodes shifting from the gates 38, 39, where they had been, where fight and struggle and provocation was a part of our path in front of us. And now they move to almost the exact opposite energy, one of restraint and peace and joy and bliss. So that, these two roads apparently are completely different. And so it shakes us to our core. And I was looking for information on that. And literally there wasn't any. And I went, oh my God, why are people not writing about this? So guess what? I found a place that I could actually write something. I've been searching for the part that is different for me. Where could I fill in sort of a blank spot that's out there? And I've discovered it, the transits of planets and what they are doing. So we'll be looking at that a little bit deeper this morning, and not my revelation, but the nodes, and what does it mean, the fact that they've shifted, and what does that mean for all of us now? How does it affect your own personal destiny? That kind of thing. Good morning, Allison. Oh my goodness, we haven't seen you in several days. Colleen, good morning. Camille, haven't seen you in a while either. It's great to see you all out there this morning. So let's talk about, first of all, let's just dig into the moon. The moon's still sitting in the sign of Taurus. And just before I went live on air, the moon turned void, went into the void at 7:48 a.m. That means 10:48 a.m. for you all on the East Coast, where it is in the void until 45 minutes after midnight, my time, and that would be about 3:46 a.m. for you all on the East Coast, when the sign that the moon will occupy is Gemini. So we will wake up tomorrow to a different feeling kind of day, where Gemini is ruling communication and sort of the search for information and following your curiosity. So the moon will cause a change for us in how we're feeling and how we're interacting with each other over the next couple of days. We talked about this yesterday as well, but at the full moon and the sun were in Mercury and the sun were in a conjunction, which means that they were in an opposition to the moon. That's the full moon, the sun-moon opposition. And of course, those were in action at the full moon just a couple of hours ago. So we had this stretching feeling, right? We're being stretched, pulled apart, maybe having to make a solution to these two supposedly opposing energies, the one of the practical, down to earth, aligned with our values energy of Taurus, versus the more crisis-oriented death and rebirth energies of Scorpio. So there was a lot of potential in this full moon for us to re-engage with our true selves, right? Getting into the nitty-gritty of what is it, my feet are firmly planted here on the earth, and how is it that I meant to share what I do intensely with passion, and in fact, even how am I to impact the planet during the time that I'm allotted here on this planet? So a lot of deep things going on with that full moon, and it may take a day or two or three even before we actually get to that point where we can say, this is it, right? I kind of feel like sometimes the moon drags out a little bit when it comes to a new or the full, as in, we've got to take time to integrate what all of that information might mean for us, and or what direction that may mean that we need to go into. So the third transit that the moon is making today is a trine to Pluto, which of course it's already made. It's already made that because we are now in the void. So we are left with this trine to Pluto until the moon changes signs just a little after midnight, or 3 a.m. for you all on the East Coast. So what does that mean for us? Well, if you've been following the show for a while, you know that we're often left, for some reason, we are often left with some kind of relationship to Pluto when the moon turns void. And I think it sort of points to the idea that we are really engaged in some deep sort of transformation, some change, some evolutionary impulse. And we are left with this energy at the void of course, so that we can integrate what it is that we've learned about ourselves, about our place in the world, about the work that we're here to do. So nothing different today than the moon leaves us with this trine to Pluto, where we can easily move through some of the things that we have to in order to engage our energy in the most opportune way out there in the planet. Remember, Pluto's in Capricorn. Capricorn is also an earth sign, very much like the moon in Taurus. That's why it's a trine, right? They're in favorable aspect to one another, and they are in a same element. So while Taurus earth is a little bit more, grounded down to the planet, like let's be concerned with the environment, let's be concerned with the day-to-day doing of things, that the tasks, the routines that need to be done. Capricorn, on the other hand, is a little bit more goal-oriented. It has a bit of a future-looking energy about it. So Pluto is taking us to what could be, while the moon in Taurus is taking us to what is now. And so we're sort of perched then at this precipice of being able to see where it is we go next. So what would we do during this time? Well, of course, a void of course moon is not a time to really start something new, but it is a great time to continue working on something that has already been in effect. So, and to take up a more spiritual viewpoint from that or around that. So if you've started a new project, or if you're working on something, if you have these goals that you're, plotting through one by one, then this is a great time to stop or to relax a little bit into it and see what more is left to be done. Is there a change in direction that needs to be taken? It's not necessarily the time to change that direction, but it is a time to consider what comes next. What's next? What is the next step for me? Now, on the other hand, today we have a Mars sextile Jupiter transit moving through the astrology landscape. And Mars, of course, is a planet of action. He is still sitting at the edge of Libra, 25 degrees, 56 minutes or so of Libra. And maybe in another few days, actually, sometime next week, changes signs into Scorpio. So we're finishing up Mars's actions through the sign of Libra, and Jupiter in Sagittarius. They're in a sextile to one another, which is a great interaction that they have with one another, sharing their gifts and their talents. For example, Jupiter is optimistic and is looking forward, sees the bigger picture. Mars in Libra is saying, yeah, but we got to have things in balance, right? We can't just go way overboard over to the one end. We want to take action. In fact, Mars loves action, but in the sign of Libra, it has to be, somewhat balanced, somewhat in harmony. So we can expect today that we have some enthusiasm, right? We have some excitement that is within us about where do I go from here? We have some optimism. Jupiter in Sagittarius, optimistic. And we can, we do want to be sort of forward looking, forward faced. But we also have to be very grounded in the now. So we have to be ready to take action, albeit maybe not today being the day to take that action. And we have to be ready to make changes, while today may not be the day exactly to start or initiate those changes. We have to be ready to advance our goals, even though today may not be the day to do that. Tomorrow is a completely different story. So maybe today it's getting your ducks in a row, making preparations, considering where are you going next, what makes sense, where do you want to be, where do you want to go. We are filled with confidence in this kind of a transit. We are also somewhat competitive when we have Mars and Jupiter. This is more friendly competition, though. It's not like if this was Mars and Pluto, it might be, a more cutthroat sort of competition. This is more friendly competition that is like each person sort of spurring the other one on to be their best. And it's not necessarily competitive, just that there's this spirit of competition in the air. Now, if we look at the gates in the human design, or your gene keys, either one, right? There's just a gene keys or a deeper look at the energies. We see that Mars is at the gate 32, which is a gate of success or a fear of failure. It sits on the spleen center, and the spleen center is the center for success. If we look at the underlying energy of the spleen, and here I have a chart. Let me show you the spleen, just in case some of you are new or you're not sure where the spleen is. This is the spleen right here. And the spleen is being defined right now because Mars is sitting at gate 32 right here, while Saturn is sitting over here at gate 54. And so that channel is the channel of transformation. And it is transformation towards success. It's evolutionary even. Now, it is the spleen center that I said was the center for success. It is the center for success because it is the energy of survival. It is the energy of the instinct to survive, and thus the successful continuation of the species. The successful continuation of the planet even could come through that center, which brings up our own abilities to affect the relative success of species on the planet. Just a note of good news. Yesterday, I was reading some article about a species of deer, a miniature deer, that was thought to be extinct. Nobody had seen one or taken any pictures of one in, I don't remember how many years, but out of Vietnam, a picture of a couple of these little deer were taken, and they realized that the species is not extinct. It is still alive and kicking on the planet, albeit hidden in the deeper jungles of the Vietnamese peninsula. I love that, right? I love it when suddenly a species appears that we thought was extinct, and or new species being, realized. So I love that. That's just kind of an aside. But the gate 32, where Mars is, ensures the survival of the species, not just humanity, but all species, and or the evolutionary pulse that sees the selection of a species to survive versus one that doesn't. So also the fear of failure in that particular center included that gate, right? Gate 32. Now, remember, just over the last couple of weeks, we had the sun sitting there. So it put a lot of focus on what are our beliefs around success, what are our beliefs around failure, and how are we set up to move through that fear and release that shadow and move through to success. Then Jupiter's been sitting at the gate 11, and the gate 11 is up on the ajna, and it reaches down toward the throat. And in the ajna, there's awareness. It is the awareness of our thinking processes. It is our awareness, our self-awareness, the awareness of what's moving up here through our mind. And the gate 11, in its gift, its gift expression is idealism, out of the dark and into the light. So the light bulb going on that may bring you some new ideas, a new direction, a new focus, a new way to achieve whatever success is to you in your life. And remember, a part of success is failure at times, right? This is a planet of duality. We cannot have one without the other. Right. And it goes back to that Thomas Edison saying, where he only needed, he tried and failed, 1800 sometimes to get the filament right that would make the light bulb light or stay lit. And, no matter how many times he failed, he realized he only needed one way to make it work. So he just kept trying until he made it work. And we have light today to light up the darkness because of his efforts, right? His failures led to success. So no matter what it is that you're doing in your life that you feel like you've been a failure at, you keep at it because success comes, right? Success comes, and it comes because you refuse to let go or give up, right? You just keep following your intuition. You keep following that inner body knowing that says, okay, I know I'm on the right track. I just need to find the right thing, right? So Mars and Jupiter today giving us a little bit of a taste of enthusiasm and optimism to stay the course, to stay on the path to creating our personal success and using that success or coming to that success through idealism, right? Seeing the bigger picture. All right, let me take a quick look here, see if we have any questions going on this morning. Hi, Jan. And Camille says, how great. That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Camille. And Colleen Jackson, good morning. Allison says, my office moved, so busy. Good morning. Missed you guys. We missed you too, Allison. April's back. Good morning. Debbie Hedden says, good morning. Londa, hello. Yay, Hawks. She's a fellow Hawks fan. And Helen Harris says, good morning. Good morning to you, Helen, in New Zealand or Australia. I can never remember which. And Londa says, great. I need to continue working on the training manual for my long distance healing team. Also getting my team together to assist. That's great. Please send prayers for all the fires on the planet. Australia is having an intense time. Many of my friends are being evacuated and living in different parts, working with the elementals in all. Wow, I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that, Londa. Sort of, we can feel for you there in Australia for sure, because half the time the west coast of Canada and the United States is on fire in our late summer and fall. It's kind of early, it seems, for you guys, because isn't it just it must be, you're just in spring. So we'll send you good thoughts and return the rains, hopefully, to douse some of those fires. Good morning, Sarah. And Londa, love where this conversation is going, but have an early morning client. We'll watch later. Good job. We'll see you then. Good morning, Mary. Justy and Helen says New Zealand. Yes, New Zealand. But hopefully New Zealand isn't on fire, and we just pray for those in Australia that they can get a hold of those fires. Okay, so let's take a look now. Let's go to the Pleiadian-Earth energy for the day. I've been taking a deeper dive. If you've noticed, I've been taking, we spent a lot of time with just sort of the key words around the Pleiadian-Earth energies of the day. Now I'm taking you into the deeper energies that run both the universal, the number part of the day, as well as the earth energy, which is the word of the day, if you will. The energy of the day. Today we are in 12 evolving, and evolving energy in the Mayan calendar was Kaban, which is a representation of earth, or was it earthquake? The symbol had a crack in the middle of it, or a zigzag line. So the Mayan hieroglyph sort of took in that possibility of earthquakes or catastrophes that happen, the energies, the very powerful geologic energies of change that run through this particular energy, or this particular type of energy. So when we look at the number, the 12 part of this is the universal energy of the day. So no matter what life forms we are on, whatever planets or systems, they would all be resonant with this particular energy today. And the energy of 12 is understanding. So this is our ability to see many perspectives, or the need for us to see many perspectives. This is also by seeing other perspectives, it's our ability to see the energetic spiral of consciousness, the rightness of it. As evolution prepares us for integration, or the potential for the up-leveling to the next spiral level, it is cause for integration and understanding of all that has gone before. So the 12, which is just before the 13 number of completion, takes us into the integration of everything. The past and the present the past and the future fade from our mind as the now comes into focus. That's the number 12. It is also death and birth as a continuous cycle. So that energy of transformation is an ongoing, our ability to see that energy as an ongoing cycle, and everything in its right and perfect time, bringing us to renewal. So the 12 sets us up to integrate everything that's gone before and prepares us for that next level of ascension, if you will, evolution, if you will, consciousness raising, if you will. We could call it by many different terms. Those are just words, but the energy is the up leveling to the next level, right? Our evolution. Now, of course, then 12, the understanding that we need in order to evolve, brings us to the energy of the day here on Earth, which is evolving energy. Evolving, right? Eliminating what no longer serves the planet. And by reflection, then, eliminating what no longer serves you in serving the planet. That one is a little bit interesting, I think, for some people, because we're so afraid to let go. Right? We're afraid to let go. We keep doing what we think we're supposed to be doing, and it doesn't feel good. Our bodies tell us through pain and suffering that, no, you are on the wrong path. We refuse to yield, right? We refuse to yield because we've got it in our minds that this is what we need to do. So what we are tasked with today, and your bodies may be showing it to you, is that of eliminating what no longer is your path to service on the planet. And, I get emails all the time from people, or text messages from people, asking about, what's going on? I'm in pain, or what's going on? My relationship's falling apart. What's going on? I can't seem to do anything. And what's going on is that you're likely pushing yourself in the wrong direction, right? Or you're not using your outer world to help you decipher what is going on within. Because if you are experiencing something in your outer world, and pain, even though you would say that it's in your body, it is still a signal about something that is going on, that you've gotten off track, right? You got off track somewhere. And how do I bring myself back into track? Well, I eliminate what no longer is serving me. I release, I let go, I surrender. So the evolving energy that we have at our fingertips today brings us that change. And there's a bit of a Uranus feel to this one for me, in that it can sometimes bring unexpected change, the unexpected letting go of something, the unexpected removal of something in your life that may feel painful at first, until you realize that that unexpected change just did you a favor, right? That allowed you to evolve and move forward. And I can tell you, I'm often a great model for all of this stuff, because I have, over the last several days, weeks, maybe even months, been struggling with, what do I need to let go of? I'm in the midst of a Saturn return, which brings that even more, into focus for me personally. And then you add to that the forces on the planet, and it feels to me sometimes like I'm being squeezed through the eye of a needle, right? Where, like, there's so much that won't fit through that little teeny eye that I've just got to release and let go of. And I think for a lot of us, that's what we're faced with right now. If I'm going to move forward, what is it I'm going to move forward with? What serves me and the collective in the highest to move forward? This is problem-solving energy as well, that brings an inner stress and brings the potential for evolutionary ideas. I see two things going on here in coherence, right? I see this evolving energy along with our Mars sextile Jupiter energy, right? Those evolutionary ideas, those being able to see, the bigger picture, and to go forward with confidence and with optimism. And I also see the nodes shifting today into energy of stress, and the negative effect of stress for us here while we're living on the planet. So, and we haven't really talked too much yet about those nodes and where they're going and what that means for us. But let me just say that this sort of validates to me that collectively we're on a road to change. And it is the stress. If you no matter what country you're living in, if you look to your outer world right now, is it fires? It's fires in Australia. It was fires in California here just couple weeks ago. It is the stress of the things that are happening in governments around the planet that we see as the symptoms of this evolutionary thing that's going on. And if I get myself caught up in it, then I feel that stress. But if I can step back from it and just see my part and understand my role, it eliminates the stress, or at least moves the stress from the shadow into my consciousness so that I can move it to the gift level. That's the whole idea of this hologenetic profile, is to be able to move to the next level, right? What is the next level? And I do find it interesting right now that if you look at the elemental distribution, that there are 4, 5, 6, 7 planets in fire, or points that I use, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in earth, earth and fire, earth on fire. So we see the elemental distribution also bringing us to the stress that creates change, or a pathway to change. So I think it is sometimes that we need some of the crisis, we need some of the drama in order to really cause us to see what it is that is no longer serving, and to see the path in front of us. I hope that makes sense to everybody. I know it's a difficult concept. Fires in the rainforest. Yep. Sarah says, hi, Londa. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Asa. Colleen says, I just had unexpected change that has been hard, but it's leveling me up. Woo, Colleen, that's pretty cool. And that's the thing. I think sometimes we look at change as if it's a negative thing. Like if I let go of doing a certain kind of thing in my business, that I'm going to be at a loss. Instead of looking at it as an opening, that it opens up a possibility for something else. So even though there may be these holes in our lives where something may have been removed or some kind of change has occurred, it is an opening, right? An opening for something new. And I think this is where we are getting to when we look at now, if I'm transitioning over to the energy of the nodes. So the nodes, the North Node and the South Node, Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, sometimes it's called, form a pathway. I guess a road, you could call it a pathway. I think road sometimes makes me think of a straight line, but there really isn't any freaking straight lines in the pathway of destiny. It's a circuitous, winding road. It's going down through the valleys. It's moving up through the hills, even maybe through the mountains, along the seashore, in through the deserts. I mean, the road of your life, the pathway, the trajectory, the nodal pathway of your life is circuitous, and it is taking you through many territories and many environments. Thus, the energy for growth and for expansion, and also for evolution, right? So we have two. We have the dragon's tail, and we have the dragon's head. In the tail, it is everything that we brought with us to the planet when we arrived here in this lifetime, in this incarnation. It includes your ancestral lineage, your cellular memory, includes all of the memories you have of the way things worked for you in the past. It is also sort of the catalog, the Akashic record even, of all that you are. And you bring that with you into this lifetime. And initially in the South Node, we try, but we fail to do things the way that we think we know how to do them. And in human design, we might say that's coming through conditioning, right? From your past, from your parents, from your society, your culture, etc. And we could also say that it is that cellular memory that holds us to an old pattern, but we also have the dragon's head, the North Node, and it really becomes apparent at your midlife crisis, your Uranus opposition point, which happens between about age 40, I'm going to say 38 to 42, because for some people it happens a little earlier. For others, it doesn't happen until later. It's as unique as you are when this really occurs. But the road begins to shift. The scenery moves out from what has occurred into the past to a trajectory that takes you into unknown territory, right? But you feel it in your bones. You feel it in your gut. You feel it deeply in your body that this is the right path, that that psychosis energy of, of hitting your head up against the wall and expecting a new outcome is leading you to being crazy, and you create a shift, an opening, a portal, a gateway. You walk through it, and now you're on the path to the North Node. Now that's for you as an individual, and it's shown in your human design, it's shown in your gene keys, and it's also shown in your astrology. It is a common thread throughout all of the disciplines. And the fact that it's been assigned a dragon's head and a dragon's tail even says more about the ancientness of our knowledge as human beings, that this was sort of an indication of a pathway that we're taking. The hero's journey, take up your sword and go down this pathway. Now, you each have that as an individual pathway, your path, your piece, your part in the play of earthly life. But collectively, we are also on a pathway. Collectively, we also have a dragon's tail. We also have a dragon's head. And it's a little bit harder to define in terms of, like, I know Uranus opposition point is going to bring up the change from south to north node. I'm thinking that with astrology, it's going to be some of the things that we're talking about now for 2020, where we have these major shift points that open up and move us to a collective new destiny. But I also believe that we can kind of chart that by watching what's happening with the nodes as they move through the human design system. So for the last several weeks, we've been dealing with the energy of the nodes at gate 39 and gate 38. Gate 38 is the gate of struggle and fight. The gate 39 was the gate of provocation, the provoking that moves us to a new level. So we had some very strenuous energies going on there between those two gates, and it was reflected in our outer world. Collectively as humanity, we're being provoked like the pin in your butt. Get moving, right? The little boot in your butt that says, get on, you have to move. And as well, looking then at the south node, and that was the gate of fight. What are we fighting for? Is it worth fighting for? What is worth fighting for? Right? And in your governments, it may be, what form of government is worth fighting for? What leader is worth fighting for? Who stands up and has holds the collective's voice? And so we've had that energy for the last several weeks, even the last couple of months, and now we're moving into a new energy. And the new energy is much more rooted in the gate, or in the energy center called the root center. So if I show you that right here, the center down here at the bottom of the chart is called the root center. And the north node is now going to be sitting at the gate 52, which moves up toward the sacral, while the south node is at the gate 58, which moves toward the spleen. And I'm going to talk more about each one of these gates in a minute, but let's just talk about the root center in and of itself, because every center, like the gates, like the channels, like the streams of consciousness running through the human design, it has shadow, gift, and city energies. So we could look at it holographically. And if we look at the root center, it is also called the center for impulse. It is also called the center for endurance. So the root center is impulse energy as well as endurance energy. In its lowest expression, in its shadow, it is the energy of stress. It is that feeling that you have in your body, that adrenaline, even sometimes this center, when it's defined, is called the center for adrenalized stress. Think about that for a minute. Adrenalized stress, putting the action, the hormones, the energy behind stress in order to give you momentum to move. In the gift of the root center, we have drive energy. And the highest expression, the city in the root center, is evolution. So you could see this is a pretty juicy place, right, in your human design. It forms, the basis, the interface between you and the planet, between humanity and the planet, between life and the planet. It's supportive, it's impulse oriented, it's driven to move forward, to evolve. And some of you are going to have this center defined, in which case you manage stress fairly well. You have a set way of which you manage stress. It could be through stress eating. It could be through exercise that relieves stress. It could be through any number of ways that you have as tools to relieve stress in your body. And some of you have this open. If you have this open, sometimes you don't know when enough is enough. You keep driving and you keep creating more stress in your body because you don't know when to shut it off, right? You have that to-do list and it keeps getting longer, right? If that's you, you have probably gotten an open root center and you don't know when number 5 is enough, and I'm sticking with it, and tomorrow I'll start again with number 1. But instead, you still keep pushing and you keep pushing. You keep driving and you keep pushing yourself to the stress limit because you don't know how to order that stress. Well, right now, every one of us has a defined stress center, a defined root center. So those of you who don't have that naturally suddenly maybe feel a little bit better about stress management. What are you doing with your life? Well, now maybe you are able to put the cutoff. Right? You've got the cutoff. And that's because we have planets that complete the channel. Either that or you're using the adrenalized stress energy incorrectly, and you'll end up in burnout later. So you still have to remember that if you're borrowing energy that isn't yours, then you still need to remember that your wisdom that you're gathering is about when to say enough is enough, when to end your day, when to stop putting things on your to-do list. All right. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Anybody got any questions about that so far? If so, go ahead and write those in there and I'll be happy to answer them. So then what we have with the North Node is it being planted now at the gate 52. And the gate 52 in its lowest expression is stress. In its lowest expression, it epitomizes the stress energy of the root center. And as it moves up to the gift level, it becomes restraint, holding yourself in check from just going in 50 different directions every day, doing, and never taking the time to be. And in its highest expression, it is the energy of stillness. And this is not sexy energy, by the way, right? This isn't the, get out there with the competitive spirit and just keep doing win. It's not that at all. This energy is completely different. So humanity right now is on the path to learning the still point. What is the still point and what can we get from that still point? The codon ring that the gate 52 is a part of is called the ring of seeking. It is the pressure to seek answers. And most of the time we're seeking answers outside of us by taking action, right? Going to the internet, going to the library, going, out to find answers. And while we find the nodes now, the North Node at the gate 52, we are coming in to find the answers. We are finding the answers in stillness, in restraint, in listening to the voice within, listening to the more ancient part of us that developed first, right? Developed first, and seeking the answers that we are looking for from a point of stillness, absolute stillness. It's hard to get there. It's hard to get there because we have minds that are busy, that, tell us all about the things that we need to get done still. I was talking to my daughter last night, and we have our family Thanksgiving this coming weekend. We do it early because I have several family members that are in retail, and so they, they're on duty. They may have Thanksgiving Day off, but they're on duty the next day. And because most of my kids are with partners now, they need to split their time between two families. So we spend ours a week to 2 weeks early. In this case, we're almost 2 weeks early. It's going to be weird, but we're holding our family Thanksgiving, and my daughter is the host of the party, of the dinner. And she's literally going nuts because all 4 of her kids are Scorpios, and she's been in the birthday party mode, putting together parties, holding sleepovers. And so she's stressing. On top of that, she's managing a bunch of these other things in her own personal life, a job that's high powered and several other things. And I was listening to her last night, and I just thought to myself, when do you put the stop button? When do you press pause? When do you say, Mom, I need your help? So I said, tell me what you need. Tell me what you need. I will gladly help you. But she couldn't even articulate what she needs. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have going right now. We don't know that what we're doing is undermining our very energy. Our stress levels are skyrocketing because 1, we don't know what we need, and 2, we just keep doing and doing and doing until we think we might find it, or it gets done, one or the other. So here we have this opportunity. The pressure to seek answers can drive you within and not outside. What can you do from within, from a still place? Okay. Hope that makes sense to everybody. It's going to be fun. Now, the other end of the dragon's tail, if you will, this is the part that I find more fun, is that it's at the gate of joy, bliss, vitality. The dragon's tail would suggest that you remember who you are. That one of the foundational energies of life here on the planet, of you as a human being, is based in vitality and joy. And in the lowest expression, in the shadow, it's dissatisfaction. And we'll dig more into the gate 58 in a bit, probably not today, probably tomorrow. But I wanted you to understand that the gate 58, the dragon's tail, gives you a foundation, gives you a starting point. And our starting point is bliss, if you're in the highest expression, vitality, if you're in the gift, that will take us within to find joy, right? To find joy. And that all of the pain and the worry and the actions that we're taking or experiencing won't find solutions in the outer world. That the solution comes from in here, right? From being still, from not feeling like you always have to be doing something. Okay. Now, before we end the day, I wanted to read, this is the book, The Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, that comes with the Oracle cards, The 64 Faces of Awakening, by Rosie Aronson, who was on my show a few months back. I love the work that she did on these stories and these beautiful cards. So here's the card for restraint. Just look at these faces and the symbols that they hold. The bird at his forehead, which I think that, I'm not sure what that bird is. Interesting though, right? Look at the symbols on the hat, and the gift here is restraint. So let's see if we can read through the story that goes with this one. This is, the more selfless your intention, the more power it will have. And the gift here is restraint, the shadow is stress, and the city is stillness. As a young farm boy, I dreamed of a bigger life. I was a ravenous reader, and it didn't take long before I started writing myself. By some stroke of luck, in my early 20s, I wrote a fast-paced historical fiction novel that was discovered by a major publisher and raced straight to the top of the bestseller list. As soon as I received my royalty check, I moved to the big city, where I was invited into a hip workspace full of cutting-edge writers. It was in that bustling space that I wrote my second novel. To my dismay, it was a flop. My fans complained, my best critics wrote hurtful reviews, and my publishers threatened to pull my next contract unless I could guarantee another hit. As I faced my next project, I was paralyzed with fear. My hip workplace suddenly felt chaotic and noisy. Stressed out and stuck, I spent hours staring at a blank screen, my mind racing with loads of self-doubt and no inspiration. I got so desperate, I started reading books about how to write bestsellers. Though I tried to follow the templates, nothing worked. Note, he's looking outside of him for all of those answers. My restlessness grew to the point where I couldn't sit still. Finally, exploding from the pressure, I kicked my desk, abandoned the building and my contract. I took the first flight out and ended up on a small island where I rented a tiny house in the country and spent months burned out and depressed. At one point, I started gardening. For weeks, my hands were deep in the earth and my mind's only concern was how to make plants grow. As my body and soul adjusted to a slower paced life, I learned that while I could embrace a plant's growth and with gardening techniques, most of the time, plants knew perfectly well how to grow. They had their own timing. I also noticed that when I was in a good mood while planting seeds, the plants seemed to do better. Such small realizations reawakened the philosopher and writer in me. This time I was inspired to write poems, each word like a flower. When I felt strong enough to go back to the big city and clean up my mess, I realized that the stress I'd felt there wasn't just mine. It was everywhere and everyone's. My heart went out to humanity, and I knew my next book would illuminate the impact of stress on all of us. My writing would serve the planet. This time, I trusted the right words, and all of the inspiration I'd need would come at just the right time. My gift to you. I come to relieve you of your stress and to remind you that everything in nature, including you, has its own timing and growth pattern. Your intentions are like seeds. If you start something from a place of fear, the seed of fear will permeate the entire endeavor. So if you want your dreams to grow and thrive, just hold a clear intention, infuse it with goodwill, and trust that your dreams know just how and when to bloom. It's time to befriend restraint, practice patience, learn how not to interfere. Let your life and dreams unfold without too much pushing or prodding. And remember, more often than not, growth and transformation take place below ground, and the greatest seeds take the longest to germinate. And then, of course, there's always the questions for contemplation, and here are the questions. Where are you feeling most restless and impatient? Where do you feel most stuck? What are the ways you experience and express stress? Is your body currently showing signs of burnout? Think of a time you practiced restraint and it paid off. Reflect upon a current project. How can you re-infuse it with goodwill and loving intention? What is a simple way you can reconnect with stillness today? Great questions. Great questions. Again, that's from Rosie Aronson's work in the Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, the 64 Faces of Awakening. And here is the face of restraint. He looks pretty peaceful and he looks pretty happy. Doesn't look like restraint has harmed him any. All right. So, last minute questions, comments, problems. Kathy Miller, good morning. I have to do one day at a time. Holidays is always a rough time for me. Yep, hard to stay on the path. Understand that totally. Linda says I'm late, but better than not at all. We love it. Good morning to Karen and Laura Paskhammer. Ginger, good morning. And Michelle Gay, good morning to you ladies. I've either stunned you all into silence, or I've done such a great job, or you're all stressed out and wondering how you're going to get through this time of restraint. Either way you look at it, remember that the basis of all of this, the South Node for the collective, is joy, bliss, vitality. And we'll deal with that one tomorrow. We'll take a look deeper at that, what the foundation energy is. Well, I'm going to check one last new comment here. If I can get my computer to behave here. I don't know how I got that far up. Libby Norman, good morning. Great to see you. I hope that means Suzanne is with you as well today. Anyway, that is it for me this morning. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Consider where you're needing restraint, where you need to de-stress, and we'll talk more about this wonderful subject tomorrow. Have a great day. See you then. Bye.